Corruption is, of course, a crime. Let's accept that. And let's recognize that dealing with crime is primarily the responsibility of the state. We have a national prosecuting authority which has a constitutional mandate to prosecute crime. We have a police service which has a constitutional mandate to prevent and combat crime and to investigate it. All crime, including corruption. We all know, and that's why we're here tonight, that a culture of corruption with impunity has grown in South Africa in the past decade or more, possibly dating back to the loss of virginity of our new government in the 90s, when 4 arms deals were entered into, but also deals like the Hitachi Power Africa deal, in which the ANC's investment arm was cut in for a quarter of the spoils. And according to William Gumede, who unfortunately can't be here tonight because of a family bereavement, the ANC has made over 5 billion rand out of that deal, a deal that should never have been done, a deal for which Hitachi has been fined in the American courts because of its contravention of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So let's look at the increase in criminality, about which Paul has spoken already, and understand that once a culture of corruption with impunity grows in a country, then more and more people get sucked into that culture, and they don't just confine themselves to tenderpreneurism or embezzlement or even the odd little bribe here and there. They feel that it is now possible to get away with all forms of corruption because of the impunity. And it is the impunity that needs to be addressed if we are going to get into a situation where we can arrest the growth of the culture of corruption and other crime with impunity by creating examples of big fish who need to go down and wear their orange overalls and put off those who have been considering a life of crime or involving themselves in corrupt activities. According to the research, and I learnt this from Professor Gavin Woods, who was the first chairman of SCOPA in the new South African Parliament, in any given population, 10% of the people are like us. They're incorruptible. 10% of the people are always corrupt. And in between, the floating population of 80% can go either way, depending on the circumstances. So if you want to arrest the spread of corrupt activities and crime in general, then you make examples through the enforcement of the law of those who are behaving, painting outside the lines. Our love affair with corruption started when the Scorpions were disbanded in 2009 as a consequence of an ANC resolution which was taken, quite coincidentally, at the conference at which Jacob Zuma was elected president of the ANC in Polokwane in December 2007. And that legislated decision was taken by a majority in Parliament, which the ANC commanded at that time, but no longer commands, and it was taken in order to shut down the Scorpions, who were doing a good job too well. They had locked up all manner of corrupt operators. They had prosecuted the persons involved in the Travelgate disaster, which means they were going after politically powerful people, and they were investigating Jacob Zuma. They'd in fact already succeeded in successfully prosecuting Jacob Zuma's personal financial advisor for corrupting Jacob Zuma. They clearly weren't popular in political circles, and they paid the price for it because they were not adequately protected against being closed down. The legislation was attacked. The Constitutional Court agreed that the legislation was unconstitutional, and it set the rules by which our country needs to be run if we are to keep ahead of the scourge of corruption, which is and I don't need to tell this audience this. It's an exceedingly corrosive phenomenon that has the potential to destroy all that we hold dear in our constitutional democracy. So the Constitutional Court said that the anti-corruption machinery of state should be STIRS compliant, which means that it must be specialized, trained, independent, both operationally and structurally, and it needs to be the resourced in a way that is guaranteed and secure in its tenure of office. We haven't had anything like that since the court gave that decision. We've now been introduced to IDAC, the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, which does not comply with the STIRS criteria in any way, shape, or form. And we have 2 private members' bills pending in Parliament. Within the next 101 days, there will be a decision as to whether the DA's bill is going to be accepted. That is where we are at as we sit here 101 days before their time limit expires, and my time limit has expired.
Just one question before we move on. It's a simple, straightforward numerical question. Please tell us how many investigators the Scorpions had at the time of its demise, and how many investigators the Investigating Directorate now has.
Well, it's a little bit difficult to find out the answer to the second part of the question, but I believe it's less than 20. There were over 200 Scorpions at the time 400 at the time that they were closed down, and there were plans to increase the staff complement of the Scorpions to 2,000, according to research by Jean Redpath of UWC.